Hello, hello. Kittn. Yep, just us two.
Yep.
Hi.
I think he might be heading to work now. Yeah, he works nights, which is why he's always got to get sleep at weird hours. I mean, like, regret is something that I've tried to, you know, tried to avoid as much as possible, but less through not regretting decisions I've made, but trying to learn from ones that I have made and making better decisions in the future, and trying to accept consequences that have happened from my choices as basically what I deserved because I'm the one who chose to do that thing. So it's that works with varying levels of success at different times. Because there are definitely times where it's easy to sort of be like, well, yeah, it didn't work out, but better luck next time. I know what I did wrong. And then there's sometimes when you're like, I really thought I had it. I don't know what went wrong. What is my life? So I think understanding is something that really helps out with a lot of people with coming to an understanding and coming to an acceptance of things instead of having regret. But regret, if you're having that feeling, it is definitely that sign that your mind is telling you that whether you want to face it or not, there's something you should really look at. As long as you're not sharing the story of how you have no regrets.
I think I have some words here. Hey, a little tired today, but I know exactly why that is. Um, but like I I would say that I don't have any regrets, and for a couple of reasons, and some of it is all about framing. For one thing, I absolutely agree that guilt and regret go hand in hand, and in how much I despise the feeling of guilt, I that that motivates me to try to actively live my life in a and like whenever I make a decision, I like one of the lenses that I look at almost like every decision through. I mean, every decision, vanilla or chocolate, but every meaningful decision is what is the decision that I'm not going to regret? What is the decision that I would make now and would make again, next week, next month, 5 years from now? And to try to make the decision that I would want to have made now while I'm still making it. Um, and that's half of it is trying to be intentional with my life and to do like not to try to not be stupid about things is one way. Another aspect of it is like I didn't like in college I didn't really have crazy college years of excess and parties and all of that. I mean, some might accuse me of having some of those times in the last year, but I'm doing so with eyes open as each of these decisions individually. I know what I'm getting into. I know that I'm consciously choosing on this night I will stay up. I am going to stay up late, and on that night I'm going to abstain because I have work the next morning. And by being intentional about those decisions rather than doing something and then regretting it, I can accept those things as the cost of, well, sure, I was up late, but in exchange I got to do this other thing, and or got this amazing experience, or got to spend this time with that person that I wouldn't have gotten to otherwise. And and because this is life, and just because you want things to go a certain way doesn't mean that they always do. Mistakes and bad fortunes and all of that stuff does still happen, but that's where the second half of things come in, of looking at life and myself and where I am right now, and going, right now and where I am is, I am happy with where I am now, and had I made any different decisions, I would be a different person in a different place. And I don't know what that person, how I would be different or where else I would be, and I can't know. And I'm okay with that, because where I am right now is pretty great, and so even though, like, any individual decision, if I'd regretted doing this or not doing that, maybe I would be in Kentucky now working at a different job because I made a different contact, but then I wouldn't have gotten to know all of you people who I think have enriched my life. Like, my life is full of branching points, and I'm happy with the one I'm on now. And so even if maybe I could have gotten a better score at that video game, could have had that conversation go better, could have had that relationship go differently, that would not have led me to this point. And in doing so, I inherently have to in liking where I'm at, I inherently have to accept every step that's gotten to me here, good or bad, because they've all been learning experiences. I mean, if things had gone better, maybe I might not be as resilient of a person as I am now. If things had if things had been easier, I might not have been as good of a problem solver as I am now. And from mistakes and hardships are strengths built. And as such, it is a conscious choice of mine that I don't regret. Well, really, I don't have regrets. Partially through not making stupid decisions in the ends, and then even the larger things, that those were necessary in order to get me where I am now. And that's kind of my philosophy, or one of several of them.
So what? The wonderful way of looking at it. So that's a wonderful way of looking at it.
Kind of touches these moving. you're an adventurer, like adventures. Oh, it's
You might want to double check that link. That looks like
Is that a
exactly what.
tasty recipe for banana bread, maybe? It's Patrick. Oh yeah, you that guy. Rudiger Stevens is my ring name.
And I just realized that I have been muted on my channel this whole time. Woo! Way to go! Awesome. It has been a day. I'll be right back.
It is the visual only broadcast.
So I will say that like being an overthinker causes way too many regrets to really talk about because you second guess everything you've ever done, and well, it could have gone that way or could have gone this way, and well, maybe if I had just done this, my life would be better. But I mean, Alex is right as far as if I hadn't gone through what I went through, I wouldn't be who I am. And it's just a matter of accepting what you've gone through to be able to say that, okay, yeah, I am who I am because of what I went through.
I'm back.
I will say that I used to overthink everything, and that this philosophy was my answer to how to cope with overthinking everything, was to just force myself to just stop and say, no, it happened. It happened one way. It will never have happened differently. Move on. But that it like I've absolutely been in your shoes of overthinking everything, of what if it had been this, what if it had been that, what if it had been that, and that when that started encroaching on, to a lesser degree, my ability to live my life, I was like, okay, I need to figure out a solution to this. And I just sometimes have the ability to alter my cognitive paradigm and go, nope, I'm going to think differently now, which is honestly, I think learning how to do that is one of the single most valuable skills I've ever developed.
And just to remind everybody, as far as I know, you don't have anxiety or depression.
I don't have, yeah. Some is also that I don't have anxiety, I don't have depression, and I don't have any major trauma to speak of, which is where some of my relentless positivity comes from. Is that, like, I don't know, it's not being me.
Life has been good to you so far?
Yeah.
I mean, well, not to say I haven't had hardship. I have, like, multiple different medical conditions that are that have long-term consequences. But like it, but on the flip side, I believe my reaction to being told, "Congrats, you're diabetic. You're going to be on shots for the rest of your life," was, oh, okay. Does that change what I need to? Does that change what the plans for lunch are?
You're such a hobbit.
Why, thank you.
Okay, so and I don't want this to come across as discounting anything you've said, because I do know that as a sufferer of anxiety and depression, we do get those racing thoughts, those worries that just start to build and compound and everything. And I don't know about anybody else, but I wish beyond everything I could just think it away. And while there is some truth to that in a very minor way, it helps to keep like the severe darkness at bay, like holding on to those glimmers of hope instead of, instead of dwelling on the worst, try to think what you have and the benefits and things like that, and the silver lining things. It's not always easy. It's definitely difficult when you're in a really low place. Um, I was in an extremely low place recently and could not bring myself to think of anything good. was in danger of harming myself. But luckily, I don't know if this is luckily, but a panic attack kind of stopped me. And I was able to regain more control over myself afterwards. I don't really know how that works, but yay! Panic attack possibly saved my life. So that's interesting. So that makes me really wonder if I should be regretting some of these mental health issues I have. While on one side it can become very dangerous if it gets to a specific point, but on the other hand, it kept me from doing so. So that was a very confusing conversation for my therapist.
All of your different all of the fun mental conditions all tried to go got stuck in the door jam.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Or like The Simpsons, Mr. Burns, like you have every disease known to man, but somehow it's what's keeping you alive. So,
Absolutely agree with your point that
what was that? You started cutting out.
I said I will absolutely agree with your point that like this is the philosophy that works for me. That doesn't necessarily mean that it works for anyone other than me. I hope that other people can use bits and pieces of it, and like a lot of this is founded on that I'm not like overcoming any neurochemical like anything that is depression is a neurochemical imbalance. It's more than just having a bad philosophy. There is more to it than that, and so you know not having to think my way out of those kind of conditions is certainly shaped some of this, but that I hope that there are pieces of this that can be used
Yes.
by those who may be struggling with one or several, because they always hunt in packs conditions.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do agree that some of the information, while it may not be everything works for everybody or anybody else, some of it can be taken in small doses or pieces to help pull somebody out of that really dark place or can help them cope with a stressful work day. Just because it is in a nicer way telling somebody, oh, just think positive. Uh, yeah, that's what we've been trying to do all our lives. But if we try to look at it in the, I guess, scientific way to try and force those positive chemicals into existence by way of thinking of things that make us feel good and trying our best to ignore what's trying to drag us down. It's I've seen it work in a couple of other people. It has worked for me on a very rare occasion, but it's still good advice and good use of your own brain. You're pretty much tricking your brain to stop lying to or trying to trick your brain into stop bullying you is more of a better term. That's always fun. Let's see who else is in the chat today. We've got Dralix, you've already spoken. Squishy, I missed most of yours, but I have a feeling it was good because you have quite a bit of insight for your own issues, and those kind of run right alongside a lot of the other ones. And Jason in the chat just said, my brain is my best friend and my worst enemy, and that could not be farther from the truth. It's a lot how it is. And then Mr. Tolar, aka Patwick, you have any stories you would like to share? Always not mandatory, but you know, any
No,
regrets
I'm
in
just, I'm
life?
just, no, I'm just recovering from having a parent today. So
Oh yeah, I know how that
yeah, I found out how much school charges whenever your son decides to break the Chromebook in
is.
class.
Oh no.
So it'll be $275.
Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah.
Ouch. That bad, huh?
So yeah, he was a bit of an a-hole today.
Eh. Yeah, I remember when I was like that as a kid, very destructive and all that stuff. Does he have any mental health issues,
Oh
or
yeah,
is he just doing the teen thing?
he is high functioning autistic. They said like right now he's such on the borderline of the spectrum. They said that about 95% of the people who are here now, as they hit adolescence, would actually, if we have him retested again, he will be within the spectrum. That's just the way the numbers work out for them or something. But he also has emotional distress syndrome and impulse control issues.
I know how that
So
one is.
yeah, so we've been like trying to get the medication dialed in right, which we thought we had, because he had some issues right before winter break, and because we changed his medicine and got him on something that started working, so he was in danger of being, even with this 504 and the other accommodations they have in place for him. He was in danger of being pushed to alternative school, which I believe he is going there now. So yeah, he could make it like 4 more weeks. So we're just kind of like, it's like a wits end kind of thing with him right now. So
And I know
so
how,
trying to get him.
I know that's really hard.
Yeah.
I know I've kind of avoided talking about my own child, but it's getting to the point where I'm gonna have to. It's not easy dealing with a special needs child, even if it's not, a major diagnosis or something like that. I know being on the spectrum can cause an extensive array of symptoms and such that can lead to, violent outbursts and things like that. But when you couple, impulse control with things like oppositional defiant disorder
Mm-hmm.
and conduct disorder and anxiety and depression and ADHD, and then not knowing if it's actually bipolar or being on the spectrum, then you start to get into some really difficult situations. Today, we had to have an officer come by and speak to him, as my desktop has been hacked again. I thought I had all the security measures in place, but apparently I forgot to shut it down when I was dealing with my major depressive episode, and he got access, got rid of all of my passwords, all of my saved passwords at least, and bought 2 copies of Minecraft. So I'm out $60 right now. And I spent $7, the last that I had in my account, until I get paid again, getting gas, and that only put me up to enough to go to work tomorrow and come home. So luckily I get paid on Thursday, so I should have enough to make it to the airport to pick somebody up. And yeah, that was a fun experience today. And because of the ADD, as soon as the officer left, things were back to normal. He had all but just lapsed on his memory of things happening, and the attitude came back, the aggression came back. He has also a video game addiction, which is why he even did what he did.
Yeah,
And
I think we're kind of on the same page with that one because, like with my son, we have actually a technology box which we have to lock everything up when we go to bed because he'll get on the Chromebook or the iPad and he'll stay up all night just watching videos and stuff which I thought we locked out, but apparently he's better than I am
yeah,
at
it's
technology. He's
extremely
better than the
difficult.
school district.
It's very difficult
He
to lock things on the Chromebook.
yeah
It's terrible.
yeah he got through all the safety measures in the district. And his mother, who's a teacher at the school, which I have issues with this also, he actually got into her account.
Oh,
And they caught that he was doing it because he was using her credentials to bypass a lot of the stuff because she was part of the district web design team, which is 2 people, but still. So yeah,
wow.
he's learned how to go about things, and I'm just like, child, quit it.
Yeah, it's pretty bad, and it's even worse that with the 504 and the SPED program that he's in school, um, the behavior specialist kind of scoffs at the notion of a video game addiction, which makes things 10 times worse. He'll have. I was asked in the annual meeting where certain protocols have to be put in place for his behavior to improve and things. I was asked by the behaviorist, "Are you sure that's what it really is, or do you just not want him to play games?" And the fact
That would be frustrating for me.
the fact that he said that to me was so surprising, that he was a behavior specialist. And he's worked with my son before and never really talked to me like that or anything like that. But also, my son is extremely intelligent and able to manipulate. And people tend to listen to the kids more than the parents on a lot of things, unfortunately. And it's become a bit of an issue with the school, keeping him off of anything that can give access to games. And it's getting to the point where he may not be able or be given access to the Chromebook for the rest of the year again. Last year he was stealing them. Stole the teachers during, like, I think spring break or summer break. So that was a big deal. Um, but yeah, the extreme stress, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I love my son. I have done and sacrificed so much for him just to make him not have to suffer the stuff that I had to, and to educate him as much as possible on how the world is without tainting reality, or well, tainting his view of the world, I should say. But his traumas and experiences have left him almost nihilistic at times, and it's sad that a child would have these dark, really dark thoughts of things. So another of my regrets is whether or not I've done the right thing trying to raise him. And I didn't really have a lot of help, and there's no um, instruction book for kids and parenting. So I try not to be too hard on myself. I try to listen to those who have told me I am a good parent. I am a good I am good at what I do. I am capable and loving and things like that. But there's certain things that can be said that make me question all of it. And it almost makes me feel weak to people like that. But I've lived, 4 years with abuse, being told that I'm a terrible mother. So there's that kind of stuff floating around in my head all the time. It's not intrusive thoughts, it's racing thoughts. You know, but regardless of what kind of thoughts they are, it's from the abuse and brings out the worst in my depression and anxieties. So I hate not being able to control my own thoughts. And to have them be so dark, and then to also know that my sons can get that dark or darker, it's definitely something that I've been struggling with, to accept that there's nothing that can be done about it because it's it's a problem of brain chemicals. But at the same time, it's questioning, should I have given him that information at that time? Should I have waited? Should I have held out instead of leaving his dad? Should I have left earlier? Should I have taken more drastic measures to protect us? I don't know.
So I'm not a parent, but I've talked to many a parent,
Apparently.
and yes, a parent, apparently. But I've talked to many parents, and it seems that being a parent definitely lends itself to a lot of regret in general, and a lot of overanalyzing situations, and
Oh yeah.
did I do this right? Did I do that right? Because you're worried about how you impacted the other person. And especially in their formative years where they're growing up and learning everything. Yeah. I can definitely see how it lends itself to questioning your choices. But the only thing I can say to that is you've done the best you can do. Especially if you're thinking about regretting things, then you put a lot of thought into this. This was not spur of the moment issue. So and as much as I've heard parents go, I should have dealt with that differently. The question is, did you deal with it differently the next time?
That's very true.
Did you apply what you're regretting? Did you apply your thought process to the next time?
That's a good way to look
And
at it.
that's where I run into a problem, because when I come up against a situation, I normally overthink it to death. I overthink it to the point where I pro and con everything, because that's how I basically grew up arguing with my parents. I pro and con everything.
Yeah.
But when it boils down to it, what did you do in that moment? And then how can you possibly make a better decision the next time?
On a side note in the chat, Peach says that she's had problems with her oldest son in the same ways. And Jason says you can't ever know. We all do the best we can. Don't worry about your microphone not working this time. If you want, I can work with you on that another day, and we can check out your settings and whatnot. And then Peach replied again, someone once told me to stop before I respond and take a deep breath, then react. And that in itself is quite an undertaking. It does take a lot of willpower and strength to be able to stop before you act. But I have learned from multiple people in my life that a good thing or a major decision or even a split decision, depending on the situation. Now, if it's, a very dangerous situation, you have to make a decision. No, don't wait. But if you're angry at somebody, or if you're really frustrated or really upset about it, and you are worried that you might say something out of line, take an hour, take 5 minutes, sleep on it. Those kinds of things, let it settle in your brain and reduce the emotional reaction versus the practical reaction. And I can't tell you how many times I have reacted emotionally to a situation where I regretted it immediately and went, oh God, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have, all this stuff. And I have very, very slowly worked towards not doing that as much. It's not easy. It's definitely not easy. Peach then says, as a mom, it helps me to remember that they react to my reaction. I can't do it every time, but I do it enough to see that it helps. And I truly believe that. I really do. If you will give me just a moment, I'm going to go rinse my brush because I have one more color to do. You guys can keep talking as you like.
I can say that the stop and think before you react has, on average, is one of the better pieces of advice that I have ever gotten, and that is, and that it is also not easy to immediately jump into putting into practice. It's, but that really did resonate with me, and that in the prior conversation, though I as far as I know, am not a parent, and so can't speak to having to make choices and decisions about being a kid. I'm young enough to remember being the kid who did successfully get around my own parents' attempt to lock down my computer access. That one, it is inevitable. That none of those systems are perfect, and that that if you give anyone under the age of 20 a to try to poke at a security system, that all we need to do is host Minecraft on a Pentagon server, and we'll suddenly have government secrets all over. But also that video game addiction is absolutely a real thing, and is absolutely something that I have struggled with time and time again myself, as particularly as the responsibility over dealing with it passed from my parents and onto me, of having to deal with it's not easy, and it is very insidious and very difficult to fight, particularly when you're not aware of the nature of it as a problem, and that it took until I was living on my own and had my and went into a spiral of getting very badly addicted to a game, or actually a series of games, that I had to, and that they disrupted my sleep schedule, and that I was constantly thinking about them while I was at work and with friends and doing other things that I've. It's even when it's even when it's yourself, it is incredibly difficult to manage. Let alone when it is someone else, and you don't have control over. You have control over what they have access to, but not over how they are thinking, and that like things really only started to get better for me when I understood that though the game is fun and hey, it doesn't have microtransactions, I'm not spending money on this, thus there's no cost to it, is not a true statement, and that there was a very real cost and damage that I was doing by and only once I had gained that understanding did, like, it took.
You keep cutting out.
Oh,
Are you pacing again?
I may or may not be doing the thing where I pace with my phone, except I'm doing it with my laptop.
Gotcha.
I think his laptop puts in more miles than I do.
Only because he's carrying it while pacing around his apartment.
Absolutely, that's why my apartment has a pacing circle.
Is that why you
surprised that
got
there
that
isn't a
apartment?
rut in the floor. Yeah, only once I both had the autonomy and responsibility, and then also came then came face to face with the consequences of spending a week and a half staying up until 5 playing a game. Did I video games are explicitly designed to give you all the good brain chemicals, and that on the surface have no immediate downside the way that alcohol has a hangover. And so it's very, very difficult to conceptualize playing a game as in any way negative until you realize that you haven't got more than 3 hours of sleep in an entire week. And only once I was living on my own and independent did I understand that it was a problem. I remember when I was, I think, 12 or 13, and I remember this experience looking back on it. My mother had, my parents would always give me limited video game time. You can play games for 45 minutes. You can play 1 hour tonight, and there was a timer. But one day I think we were in Flux, and they were moving, and the timer was packed, and so she said, you can go play a game. And then I remember later her saying this was a test to see if you would put the game down on your own. And of course I didn't. I had been playing for 4 hours because I had just gotten a new Pokemon game, and I'm like, no, but I can't stop now in the middle of a gym fight. And she's like, no, it's been 4 hours, put the game down. And I remember this after the fact as, of course I would never put the game down. I never had a reason to stop playing. and that's the kind of the insidious thing there, is that when playing a game feels better than not playing a game, that, like, when I was very young, and I didn't have, like, I needing to go to school, needing to go to bed were not things that I wanted to do more than playing games, or, in my view, were things that I intrinsically needed to do. They were things that other people told me I had to do. And so, like, of course I wanted to play games all the time. Like, at the time, it was like I could balance that somewhat with, I also wanted to hang out with my friends and talk to them, oftentimes about games, or with my brother, who I grow ever grateful for, but that, like, I don't know, like, it's, I don't have any answers. I'm unfortunately just offering the perspective of someone who is, for this group, relatively young, and young enough to remember when I was in that position.
And it's more than enough to offer. You don't have to give answers to every issue. You don't have to, feel like you need to provide a solution to other people's problems. That's on me. No, I'm kidding. Peach says Drylix, she had to use games to motivate her to do things, and that's awesome when you can use something like that for motivation, because they are fun. They are a great distraction, and I use them a lot for unwinding at the end of the day. I don't go and like murder mayhem all the time, but it's fun.
It,
But with my son, it's not just that he would play and play and play, it's the effect it had on him when he stopped. And that was, he became severely violent and aggressive. Um, the day I recall discovering that it was the video games causing these outbursts and things. And it's not that he was playing violent video games either. It was like Mario Kart. Or, well, I know that can make anybody rage. But I mean, just like Super Mario, Zelda, stuff like that. Just, every standard game you can think of that's not inherently violent, in terms of like Call of Duty or all these other games that were blamed for kids being violent. But I came home one day and it looked like we had been robbed. Everything was in disarray, disheveled, torn apart, and it was my son looking for batteries for the Wiimote. And it was reminiscent of a drug addict looking for a fix. And right then and there, it broke my heart, because I knew that I couldn't let him do that anymore. And we would play games together and have fun. And, I had such high hopes for, showing him like all the original gaming systems, the Atari, the TurboGrafx 16, Sega, all that fun stuff. And it just had to stop. And it really sucks, because he absolutely loves Minecraft, and he has made some amazing things in Minecraft. But unfortunately, I can't allow him to do it anymore, because of how he gets and how it sets him back like 6 months every time he tries something to get access to games. And when I say sets back 6 months, that's 6 months of therapy. It's like almost starting over every time he does it. It's like, I was just testing to see if I was okay with it. It's like, sweetie, that's not your call to make. You've got to stick with, not doing this until we can get this completely out of your system. That you can go back to it, in a safer way. You need to find what is causing that aggressive trigger and figure out why it does that so that you can heal, you know? But unfortunately, even though he does admit that he has a video game addiction, which is, a good start, he still has that impulse control, which makes it even harder for him. So, with these dragon egg things, I kind of want to start selling some, and the majority proceeds will be donated to Joker from Dragon Panther Studios, also known as Setsuna Steel, I believe, if I'm saying that correctly. He does TikTok mostly, I think, right now.
And YouTube.
And YouTube, sorry. And whatever's left is gonna go to get me more thumbtacks because I'm always running out of those now. So I'm pretty good on paints. I've got a decent supply of eggs in 4 different sizes. 3-inch, 4-inch, 6, and 8-inch. Those things are monsters, bigger than my kid's head. So those are gonna be a little pricier, but the little ones are like $10-15 for a solid color. Something worth the time and effort that goes into it. And I guess that's also why I get to show you guys me painting these, because I gotta paint each individual sometime. I wonder if airbrushing would be faster. Of course, I don't know. Does anybody have experience with an airbrush, and can acrylic paint be put into it?
I don't have any experience, but I feel like it can be if you have the right type of airbrush.
I think it might have to be thinned down, maybe.
My only experience is spray painting metal scales for scale mail. And oddly enough, the spray paint I used did stick to the scales. They didn't wear off after wearing it around for a full day.
Yeah, but I've already bought all this paint. I want to use my paint.
So Google says it's possible.
Yeah.
Possible. Good. So not improbable.
It says something about high flow acrylics, which I don't know.
Idea what this is. I think these are multi-surface. I don't know what that means. Well, I mean, I know what multi-surface is, but the high flow, I think that means thinner. Because these are kind of thin. These would have to be thinned, or I'd have to get a whole new set of paint. I'll just
You can reduce it with distilled water.
Yay.
So
So I'm not going to use the proceeds to get an airbrush. Promise. Take that out of my own pocket. But once I get an airbrush, I can hopefully, reduce the cost of some of these to make them quicker for people. Yeah, and I also have these nifty little tools. They have these teeny little dots on the end of them that I might be able to use to put some designs on each individual scale, depending, like maybe a spot, stripes, coat the edges to make it look like a pointed scale. Just, little things. That would probably have to be added after it's assembled. I don't know yet. I haven't played with it just yet. I'm gonna toy around with it on the 3-inch eggs and post those on my Twitter and Instagram. See how they look and the reactions I get from them, whatnot. See if it's worthwhile. Well, if nobody has any more regret stories, you guys can talk about whatever else. I'm just gonna finish up these last few rows and call it a night.
Well, I have a hard time accepting things I can't change. And that, of course, means that, I have a lot of regrets that keep popping back up because I'll put them to bed with the thought of, okay, I did that in that situation. It's over, it's done with. There's nothing you can do to change it. Let it rest.
And then the overthinking begins.
Exactly.
Yep.
And then, I'll move on with life and everything's hunky dory and I don't think about it for a long time. And then something triggers a thought of that, and I'm like, let's overthink this again.
Yeah. One of my biggest triggers was the shower. It got to a point where I hated showering, and I would go as long as I possibly could without, because every time I got in the shower, it triggered a memory of back in school. There were these girls that would constantly pick on me and say really horrible things to me, and one of the interactions was, "Hey, do you ever shower or wash your hair?" And, me being kind of ignorant to what was going on, I, would engage, and it's like, yeah. And they'd ask me how and if I use conditioner. And, my mom taught me a specific way to wash my hair that, worked better for oily hair like I have. And I was very gullible in school, thinking people can't really be this hateful, And so I would show them how. My mom taught me how to wash my hair, and which is to just go at the roots, because if you wash your entire head of hair, you are stripping away, the oils that are healthy for your hair and such. So I would only go with the roots, and they're like, well, maybe you should stop worrying about just that one spot, and because I only got to show them 1 second of it, and they picked on me for how I washed my hair. And every time I got in a shower, I would start washing my hair that way, and it would trigger the memory of those girls and the hurtful things they would say. And I would play the scenario over and over in my head of how I should have responded, what I should have done, should I have even engaged. And I was telling my niece about this, and she came up with the most brilliant plan that I never thought of. Why don't you just wash your hair differently? Then it won't trigger those thoughts. And I sat there just dumbfounded that I couldn't have thought of that before. It was so simple, yet so far from a common thought. And it worked. And just to think this, really could not have thought of that on my own. I felt so dumb. But I mean, if you think about it, when you're overthinking and stuck with intrusive thoughts and racing thoughts and things like that, your brain is blinding you to the obvious. So that is something I still get triggered in the shower sometimes. But at the same time, now I just remember what my niece said, and it gets better. So, yeah. It's kind of funny how that works, but yeah, I never would have thought of that on my own. Alrighty, guys. It is now 8:48 p.m. Central Standard Time. I am done painting these and will put them in a container for later. I've been doing a lot of pre-painting so that I can just grab and poke into the styrofoam eggs. And I plan to have a lot of different examples available for, quick sales and things like that. I like the quad colors a lot. Tricolors are good too. The more colors, excuse me, the more colors that are similar to one another. When you have like two main contrasting colors, like in this one is red and black, and then there's like this slate gray and metallic red. So those colors being very similar to each other, the reds and the black and gray, those tend to blend well. But there's definitely nothing wrong with just a solid color. And I have some really pretty colors now. I mean, look at these. These metallics are just absolutely gorgeous. So there's
So
one.
I do have a question about your eggs,
I have an answer.
and that is, have you thought of making a spotted one?
Spotted, like mostly one color but just a smattering of others? Yes. That is going to be my next one.
I'm thinking white with green spots, and anybody know why?
Yoshi. I can definitely do something with that. My next one that I was going to do is white, where there is a smattering of pearlescent white, and I've got these 3 glazes here. One is a kind of a darker blue, one is kind of a gold, and the other one has like a light bluish green when it dries, these little like shimmery bits. And I was going to do white with some speckles of pearlescent, and then the solid white ones we're going to have the dragonfly glaze in different places, not all of it. Jason likes the idea of a Yoshi egg. Anyway. So I will definitely take the Yoshi egg into consideration. I can also do, I mean, technically I could do all the Yoshi egg colors. So if you want a collection. But yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And the more I do, the better I'm gonna get. So yeah. And Jason, you said the music playing right now sounds like Zelda. It is. It is the Fairy Fountain by Michael at Game Chops. I have a chill stream public playlist that I use on Spotify, and it's known to be Twitch friendly, and I kind of like that for this stream. I dig it. All right, guys, thank you all for joining. And again, if you want to make a donation to Joker, aka Sets in a Steel from the Dragon Panther Studios group, their Cash App is $KITTNTIGER. And they suffered a fire and lost everything, including 2 service animals. And that's definitely something that nobody can plan around, really. So yes, if you want to make a donation, please go ahead. I'm going to start selling the dragon eggs after I get a few more pre-painted sets done, and I'll start posting them on my Instagram and my Twitter, and hopefully I'll get something that way. That way I can also make some donations. So, alrighty. You guys have a wonderful night. Thank you again for sharing. I appreciate each one of you and all the input that you do. Thank you so much, everybody in the channel. for tuning in. It makes me feel good to see those numbers going up because I know that means it's hitting more people and more people are able to learn and find that safe space. So take care of yourselves, guys, and take care of each other. All right. Have a good night. Bye.